And I think we're going to be joining Teresa, who I think we finally caught up with. I think, is Teresa ready?
I'm all here. I'm right here, Doug, and we, as you said, we were absent for about a half an hour or so because we were working our way up to Constitution Avenue with our new equipment right here at the Supreme Court, where the Silent No More awareness event is already underway. Standing next to me, of course, is a very familiar face from EWTN, both radio and television, of course. On television, you see her with me on Catholic View for Women, but also, of course, on Defending Life, the co-founder of the Silent No More awareness campaign, Janet Morana. And Janet, how long have you been doing these testimonies here every year?
Well, we started, as you know, in January of the 22nd, 2003 was our first gathering. So, and we've had gatherings also, over 1,400 gatherings have been held both nation and worldwide in cities and towns all over the United States and abroad. We also are at the Canada March for Life every year. EWTN covers that. So, and this is a joy this year because, as you know, after all these years, we finally got the technology so that we can bring the viewers the testimonies of these brave women and men. And I want everyone to understand, anyone speaking here today, they've already gone through a healing program. They've told their family that they're silent no more. So we do this not to exploit them, but they've gone through all these steps. And so therefore they're doing it not out of their pain, but out of their healing and their redemption in Jesus Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to know that they actually had healing before coming here, because it's a very important step in that whole healing process before going public with your testimony.
Absolutely, because, you know, they were already exploited by the abortion industry. We don't want to exploit these women. And not every woman who registers with Silent No More speaks. Not every woman who registers their regret, even anonymously, does that. But these women, in addition, through being healed, say, we want to stop other women from going down this road. We want to reach some of our sisters that are still locked in the sin of abortion. They think there's no hope. And you know what the wonderful thing is, Teresa, as you know, every woman that's healed from their abortion is forgiven by the Lord, and they go back to church. This is the new evangelization for the Catholic Church, is all these women. And you listen to them. I came back to my church. I was away for so many years because they commit what they think is the unforgivable sin. And we're thrilled now that you're going to be up here talking to some of these women, and EWTN will be able to get these testimonies out. So we'll get more healing. And I want the viewers to know, go to silentnomore.com, where you can see the testimonies and you can find healing. If you're suffering from an abortion, we want you to find healing in your community.
Well, let me back away from the camera, and our cameraman Rodney can go to the podium, and we can catch a little bit of this testimony of the latest woman giving her story about how abortion affected her life.
Close relative for financial assistance to have his grandchild. Instead, I got back a letter and money for an abortion, saying it wasn't the right time. I was weak and alone, and I knew it was wrong to do, but I did it. As I cried during the procedure, I remember the nurse holding my hand and saying, "Don't worry, honey, it'll be over soon." But I wasn't crying for the pain. I was crying out of desolation. And it wasn't over for me. It just started years and years of silent suffering and guilt. I lost my trust in people and God. I learned about building walls to protect myself from more pain, of losing trust in the people that I loved, and hating my very self. And it wasn't until one day I heard Christ gently calling me, persistently, and I learned about the power of his forgiveness and mercy. And then I could start to forgive myself. And then from then on, I was silent no more forever. Women who have had abortions are the only people in the world who tell people their sin over and over and over again. No one else holds a sign for the world to see saying, "I committed adultery," or "I stole money from my family," or "I lied a lot," or "I cheated on a test." No one.
Or do you want Jen?
No one. It's so lopsided. So why does this happen? Perhaps the one reason is because these women, whom God has forgiven, love him so much that they want to help someone else stop from committing the same sin. They share their very heart and soul with strangers in order to save others. Thank you, and choose life.
There you heard it, and you saw some pictures there, and obviously We had some video issues, but again, that's because we're using that cellular technology, that live view camera to get up there and try something, to get there where we've never been there before. And it's not perfect, but it's better than what we had. And we heard a wonderful testimony, a very, very powerful testimony, Father, as we continue to cover here the march.
I saw St. John Cantius, and you might have noticed a lot of yellow balloons they had there. I know sometime in the past in Chicago, they had actually made a rosary out of balloons that they released, and there was something that happened.
Well, another thing we can mention as we see some more images of the march, because that's what everybody wants to see, is the rosary. You redid a pro-life rosary recently, right?
I think it's going to air pretty soon. We redid that.
Right. I think it's actually available, according to Peter Gagnon indicated. He sent me an email saying at the EWTN.com/pro-life page, and you'll be able to see the rosary when it's coming up. And that's great, and because that rosary was done probably right around 9/11, the original one, wasn't it?
It was a long time ago, so we needed to update it, and we also added the other mysteries, the sorrowful, the luminous, and the glorious mysteries as well.
Because before, and there's Our Lady of Fatima, the Pilgrim Virgin statue. Here, I guess we're catching what looks like the end of the parade, passing one of our camera positions. This is the high shot that we've got that looks back from the building up there, that shoots down towards the Supreme Court building. And we're hoping we'll be able to get some better pictures maybe going forward from what's happening at the Supreme Court. And we're going to be going back to Teresa right now, who's up at the Supreme Court. So, Teresa, what do you have for us?
I came to accept the truth about my abortion that resulted in the death of my child. And God's forgiveness.
Hi, Doug. This is a very interesting interview that we're going to do with with Kevin Burke, Dr. Kevin Burke, of course, from.
Now grief over the loss of my child and the shame for what I had done to my surgery. I did the only thing I knew to do.
We're back here live at the Supreme Court, and with me is Kevin, who's a social worker. And tell us your experience and why you're here today.
Well, I was given the honor of sharing a testimony of a prisoner who is part of a Rachel's Vineyard prison ministry in Florida, in a maximum security prison. He's one of 60 men who have had abortions and have gone through that healing program, and I was able to present his testimony for him and honor his child, Angela Grace, today.
In terms of what you found with this research with the men in prison, it's so interesting, the connection that people don't realize between the violence of abortion in the womb and violent crime and the effect it has on a man associated with an abortion.
I met with 4 of the men, 4 of the 60 men who have been through that program. The deacon who opened the doors for Rachel's Vineyard to come into the prison did an anonymous poll of 100 men who came to his services in 2 different prisons. 90% of the men said that abortion, they had 1 or more abortions in their past, and it has impacted their life in a negative way. Some of the men who I met with individually, and the man who I read his testimony today, it's very clear how the abortion comes at a time when they're very vulnerable as men. If they've had serious wounds with their fathers, even some men who didn't have previous violence or acting out, that abortion opened the door for them to get involved in high-risk behavior and eventually for some of them criminal behavior.
This is such a powerful story. Has it received any coverage at all in the secular media? Have you talked to them about this, the members of the media?
We actually shopped the story around that looked at my experience in the prison and looked at the themes that I was finding with these men. It was a very compelling and powerful, I believe, article with a lot of good information. They don't want to touch it.
Why don't you think that is?
My child could have had.
I think it's hard enough for them to acknowledge that it hurts women. We're really stretching it when we start acknowledging that it hurts men. To tie abortion into someone committing murder and being involved in violent crime, I can tell you from my experience that there is absolutely a connection in these men's lives of their abortion being either a contributing factor or a causative factor. Our society is unfortunately not ready to hear that, but we're paying a very high price by not paying attention and bringing healing to these men.
It just goes on and on and on. The domino effect, abortion. Kevin, good to see you. Thanks so much. Again, Kevin, a social worker working with Priests for Life in Rachel's Vineyard. Let's go back to the podium and hear another statement for a few minutes, because this is really why we're here, to hear from the men and women who are post-abortive. Let's see what this young woman has to say about her post-abortion experience.
Shiri gave it. Forever echo my heart. I want to introduce my son to the woman who saved his life. I told her I was just a servant of the Lord as I raised her son to the heavens and said, this one's for you. After that incredible experience, I went to confession, then attended a Rachel's Vineyard weekend retreat. I found help and forgiveness through Rachel's Vineyard weekend retreat. I found the group setting very helpful. I learned that I was not alone.
I mean, I could probably...
Others had experienced the same symptoms, especially the traumas resulting from not voicing my pain.
We're shoulder to shoulder across, so I'm trying to move
the
and
healing process of Rachel's Vineyard opened me up to God's mercy and love, and spiritually I found my way back home. Renewed, I vowed to do everything within my power to prevent other women from suffering as I did, as I am silent no more. God bless.
Hello, I'm Paula Ellison. If you would have asked me 20 years ago if I regretted my abortion, my quick answer to you would have been no.
Another interview.
I justified my abortion for a long list of reasons, not knowing then what I know now.
Okay.
I was 18 years old, a senior in high school, an athlete, and I was a good student. I allowed myself to become involved with people who had a bad influence on me. Unfortunately, I became pregnant by a man.
Doug, if you're still with me, we are now with Leslie from Virginia, and she's going to tell us her testimony, her story. Why did you decide to be Silent No More?
It was crushing my inside. 30 years it took me, Teresa. I just couldn't live in peace and live a lie. The good Lord led me. 30 years I was pro-choice, by the way. I was an advocate. I lobbied. I was 1 month away from becoming a board member of the Virginia League for Planned Parenthood.
Wow.
When God grabbed me from the neck and said, you will not fight against life anymore. And one thing led to another. I realized I needed healing. I needed hope and healing. I ended up attending an incredible retreat, Rachel's Vineyard. And it brought, it connected the dots of all the, I was drugs, alcohol, all the self-destructive behaviors. And it didn't make sense. I was like you. I was a television host and living a bogus life, hypocritical, and it was just crushing my heart until you have to speak the truth. So it took 30 years, got the healing and hope. Still a bumpy journey, but the truth sets you free. We have to speak the truth with love because it has a profound impact on your life. A woman does not kill her child in her womb and move on with life as though there's no big deal. It crushes you.
You're a reporter by trade, so the questions I'm sure you now ask yourself as a journalist looking back as to, it has to be a denial, it has to be a regret, or the fact that society does not allow people to talk about it, does not allow you to say that you were hurt, which is where the confusion comes in, more denial, more confusion, more pain, the drinking, the drugs.
For 13 years,
what would you say now to those people with whom you were going to work at Planned Parenthood? Have you talked to them when you stepped away from that possibility of getting that position?
I get a lot of snarky looks. Really, truly, I was lobbying for choice. I was those people out there on the, with the looking at all these pro-life people thinking they were wackos, religious zealots. It's only through God's grace. It's only God's grace. I've lost a lot of friends, Teresa. I've lost so many family.
But you've gained so many more.
Because it's the truth. Again, you can't live a lie and live in peace. And in God's amazing grace, if He can turn me, He can turn anybody. It's kind of like a St. Paul moment, So I just encourage it's the silence. We've got to break the silence because I'm convinced that that's what leads to so many of these self-destructive behaviors. The addictions. I mean, doesn't it make sense that you're going to do everything you can to mask that pain of what you really did? Sure. So the
sad thing is that they can't. The society won't let them make that connection. That's what's so troubling, and they don't have to go down that route. There is healing available. Well, thank you. God bless you. Keep up the great work. Back to you in the studio, and we have many more people that we'll be interviewing. If you'd like us to keep coming back, there's a lot of men here that I'd like to talk to who are also post-abortive. And what we're seeing now too are couples who are actually coming up and giving their testimony as married couples and the impact that abortion had on their relationship. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Teresa. A very, very powerful interview there, especially, and again, somebody working in the media. I'm Doug Keck here with Father Joseph Mary Wolf, our chaplain here at EWTN, as we are up at the Supreme Court there with Teresa doing some interviews. We're also seeing the back end, obviously, as you can see on your screen. of the back end of the march, moving up past the Capitol building towards, as you can see, the Supreme Court building there on the right. Right in front of that on the right is actually where Teresa is right now. We are using our cellular technology as best we can. It's the kind of thing you test out, but then when 600,000 people decide to use their cell phones, probably to email EWTN, you know, it could cause us some cellular problems probably on the air. But it's interesting. In some ways, we even had a kind of French impressionistic perspective going on the air there with some of those images and some of those interviews. And again, there you can see right now is the image of the Supreme Court building. And of course, that was where back in 1973, really, the gates really were opened across the nation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that testimony that God's grace is what changed her heart. She wasn't convinced by some argument necessarily. We need to present the truth, obviously, and that's part of the impact. But ultimately, it comes down to God touching that heart, His grace moving in their soul, which is why this movement is always surrounded by prayer, begins with prayer, concludes with prayer, and throughout.
Right, exactly. And I'll be very interested to hear. I haven't heard any numbers, but I'm interested to see what kind of numbers they think, because clearly it was a much larger group than I expected to see based upon the weather conditions in getting there, let alone how cold it was while people were there. And also we had seen some other banners from Holy Family Academy, right? Ball State Students for Life, the Diocese of St. Thomas of the Virgin Islands we saw. Again, the image on your screen right now is the Supreme Court. And we are looking at that as the march kind of winds up and winds its way there. And with that being said, we want to make sure we check in once more with the man of a million voices, the boisterous one himself. It's Mike Romano. Mike.
Doug, I am here with the Diocese of Green Bay. And how long have you all been coming here to the March for Life?
Many years. First year.
Your first year. And now, what do you expect to take away this year from the March for Life? Anything that's resonated with you this year in the March for Life?
Well, I think it's definitely a great experience, you know, with all these people like gathered together and march for something which we have in common. There's a lot of people, a lot of Christians, but also non-Christians. It's kind of something which unites us, I think.
Beautiful. And we are all united. And, you know, Doug, Sir Thomas Edison once said that if it seems as if I've seen farther than most, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. And today we have stood on the shoulders of many pro-life giants, and we're slaying a giant, that giant being the culture of death. For the 2014 March for Life, I'm Mike Romano. God bless you all. Thank you for watching. Back to you, Doug.
Thank you so much, Mike, and thanks for stepping in. We've got to give kudos to Mike. He works in our radio division normally. Damon Owens, who is our normal field reporter, who's usually teamed with Teresa Tomeo, was unavailable this year, and even our backup for that. And Mike jumped in and did a great, enthusiastic, energetic job, certainly for us. Thank you so much, Mike. And Father, we're going to jump out one more time to say so long to our stalwart, Teresa Tomeo. Teresa, up by the Supreme Court.
I'm ready.
Okay. Take a deep breath.
So go ahead, Teresa. I hear you now. You're on.
With marriage 5 years later.
Hey, thanks, Doug. Appreciate it, and so appreciate the opportunity to talk to more women. Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. I'm going to do one more quick interview because this is a very powerful story. This is Shannon, and Shannon is a veteran of the Navy, and I know that the issue of abortion is very silenced in the military, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am, it is. They don't want to talk about it. It's just something that they say it's your choice, but you know, it's something that they, I don't want to say push, but they constantly tell you it's okay if you do that. And something I wasn't expecting when I joined the military.
How are you doing now? You're here giving your testimony, correct?
Yes, ma'am. It's my first time ever giving my testimony in public.
How you doing?
I'm a little nervous, but I'll be doing it here, and then I'll be going to San Francisco Saturday to do my testimony as well.
Well, you do know you're going to be helping an awful lot of people.
Yes, ma'am. And I want to get out to all the military and know that there are other options out there, and there are support out there, not only with your family and friends, but in the military as well.
God bless you. Thank you for speaking out. And Doug, it's a little bit of a very somber type of an event here. So although obviously we're very excited about the march, and the marchers are still going by, and several 100,000 people, I want to toss it back to you in the studio. But I think on behalf of all the men and women of Silent No More, I know they appreciate us being here, and this is their testimony. This is another way to send the message out, in addition to all of our visuals with the kids and the cheering and the bands and the wonderful young people in the colleges. It's important for us also to see this other side, as we are showing and have shown before, only a different wise in terms of technology. But I think it's important to say goodbye from this standpoint, you know, on my end, being out here live with these ladies and men. I know them, many of them very well, the work that we do at EWTN with them. And so let me say so long from the Silent No More Awareness Campaign at the steps of the Supreme Court, and to thank all the EWTN viewers for supporting us in our efforts to bring these type of stories and testimonies live to you. Back to you in the studio.